right, everybody, we are back. The Pesce Lanzillotta Team Podcast. This is our 20th episode, and I think our fourth during the coronavirus quarantine pandemic.
Yeah, we're starting to hit a little bit of a groove. This pandemic has given us the opportunity to actually start doing this consistently.
Yeah. I mean, we've been creating a ton of content. This past weekend, was it this past weekend or Friday, Saturday? At the end of last week, we actually went out to a town that we know a lot about, Massapequa. It's where we're from, born and raised, and we gathered a ton of content, which is something we've been meaning to do for a long time. So, I mean, you can't say that this has been a complete waste of time. It hasn't been. We've been making the most of it, pushing out content and doing our thing, but. So one of the things I discovered this weekend that I've binge watched 2 seasons in a matter of like 4 days is Ozark. Are you an Ozark guy or what?
Yeah, no, I've watched all 3 seasons.
I don't have the third. I didn't even start the 3rd season yet, but my goodness, what a show! I mean, Jason Bateman. His name's Jason Bateman, right?
I think so. Yes.
Jason Bateman. He does not come across as like a guy that would be good in a role like this, but he kills it.
It's a good show. The 3rd season, I think the 3rd season's the best season.
God, now you got me all excited.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about it is the women's in the show scare me the most.
Oh, wait till the 3rd season.
The Snell, Mrs. Snell, she's dangerous.
And you got the drug lord's attorney.
Well, her I don't worry about because she's just enforcing what the drug lord tells her to enforce. But she is very cut and dry. Like, it's interesting on, spoiler alert, how the 2nd season ends when Marty's wife goes and asks her for a favor, and she's like, "Hold it. Anything you say from this point on, you cannot take back." It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're in a situation like that where like you're bent over a barrel with, these Mexican cartels and there's literally, you got to watch every little word you say in front of them because whatever you do with them will trigger something that you can't take back.
Yeah, there's no gray area. It's probably the same thing with the mafia. It's you're either in or you're out.
Yeah.
You can't have like a toe half in.
Yeah.
It's no gray area.
Yeah.
You're either involved or you're not. If you're involved, you're in all the way.
Well, okay. Remind me about Francesi, a guy from Long Island that did get out. But to finish my Ozark thought, one of the things that was fascinating to me was it's the money laundering aspect of it. So what's amazing is the first thing he comes up with is church. They don't look into churches.
Yeah.
It's probably the greatest money laundering business possible is a church, right? Donations.
You're going to see a documentary 10 years from now on the biggest bust of all time.
And then they talk about casinos, and it's funny how in the show they're like, all these cartels, the Sinaloa cartel and all that. I'm a big Narcos guy too, by the way. But they've been trying to basically erect a casino all these years, and they finally got it. You finally got it done. But it's interesting to think of the thought process of like these different cash businesses and how they can filter money through them and clean it. It's just wild. And to think that probably on some level does go on.
Probably 100%. I mean, it's just, again, the mafia. So you think about, you could just take TV shows, but it's all, so The Sopranos with the strip clubs or The Godfather, the mob literally went out and built Vegas. They built the casinos.
That's true. True. They did go out and build Vegas.
Yeah.
What was
Casino,
the movie with Pesce.
Yeah,
that was one of my favorite movies ever. Ever. Yeah. And then it became commercialized. They talk about at the end of that movie how it became commercialized. But getting back to Francesi, I don't know his exact name, but this guy's all over the internet. He's an ex-mobster. And he is from Long Island. And somehow, I don't know the whole story, somehow he was able to get gas for way cheaper than any other gas station on Long Island could get. And he started opening up gas stations across the street and buying up every gas station on Long Island, because he would open up a gas station across the street and say, look, I'm going to open up a gas station across the street and I'm going to charge, 25 cents less per gallon. This is back in the 90s. So 25 cents less per gallon was probably like
$1 or something.
40% of what you were spending per gallon of gas. And he would tell people, I'll just put you out of business. So they would sell their gas station to him. And he amassed like an $8 million a week profit business for the mob right here on Long Island.
Yeah, I could see that.
And he's all over the internet. He's doing a lot of interviews.
Probably hijacking the gas trucks and just taking the gas.
His father was a longtime gangster that was very, very much involved and was like an old school gangster. And I think his father actually testified against him in court or something like that. Something weird where, no. His father supported putting a hit out on him.
Okay.
From the mob, because the father was old school. He didn't talk to the feds, right? Mm-hmm. And he did, or something like that, or he was trying to get out of the mob. There was some story behind it, but his father actually ordered a hit on him, or okay to hit on him, because he was looking to get out. But he supposedly he's like one of the most successful mobsters of all time. Like nobody.
$8 million a week is going to be tough to beat.
Right. I mean, and that was clean money because it was legitimate businesses. He just had a better margin than anybody out there.
It was legitimate once he sold the gas. Getting the gas cheaper was probably not.
Yeah,
legitimate.
I forget how he did it.
Probably hijacked the gas. I mean, he must have stole the gas somehow.
It had something to do with something. I'll go back and I'll find out because now I'm curious. But yeah, so Ozark's awesome, man. I totally highly recommend it. That, and are you watching the Jordan,
yes,
the Last Dance?
Mm-hmm.
What are your takeaways from that?
Yeah, I love it. I remember growing up, like in the 90s, I remember watching the Knicks with Ewing and John Stark and Allen Houston, all those guys. I remember being, a big basketball fan in the 90s. It was so great. I remember Shaq on the Orlando Magic.
I haven't watched basketball since that era.
Well, part of it's probably because in New York, that's the last time the Knicks were good. But also, basketball then was great.
Yeah, I remember Anthony Mason was the last memory that I have. He came in those later seasons with Starks and all that, but the Bulls were awesome, man. And
unbeatable.
To think, what's funny is it's the cast of characters was interesting. I also didn't know that Jordan was getting his ass kicked by the Pistons early on in his career.
Yes.
And I did not know that Dennis Rodman was on that Piston team.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea Dennis Rodman was. I knew he was a great defensive basketball player. I didn't know he preceded Jordan's era of success and kicked his ass before he joined that team. Mm-hmm. I thought that was fascinating.
What was I going to say? And what's crazy to think is that he won 3 in a row, retired for a full season and a half. If he didn't retire, he probably would have won 8 in a row. He would have won the 94 season and the 95 season, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think they were saying the Houston Rockets won it in those years, and they would have never beat him had he stayed the course and stayed on the team.
And if the Bulls could have held it together for one more year, they probably would have won the 99. I mean, he feasibly could have won literally the whole 90s, 9 years in a row.
Insane. It's crazy to think that someone could be that good,
I think I'm a big believer in this because I played sports at a high level. I played soccer, and I always believe that the difference between like the great and the greatest is not a physical difference at that point. It's a mental difference, and you could tell. I think that documentary supports my theory because he wasn't the biggest or strongest guy, I'm sure, but he mentally, his mindset was just, he was crazed. He was so motivated by competition, so driven.
How fucking mad he would get. He would give himself these reasons to be set on fire.
The littlest thing would set him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe, it was a mental difference, which is why I think this documentary cements it. He's the greatest player of all time. There's no way LeBron or anyone else comes close.
Does anyone? there's people with more rings than him, but has anyone had a bigger impact than him?
No, and this was all before social media. He rose to this level of fame in an era where it was unprecedented.
Yeah. I think what's amazing to me too is just that like how he carried himself. Like so do you think that those characteristics are independent to a physical activity like sports, or can you bring that into the business world? I guess is the big question, right?
Yeah,
because he would get physical with people, and like Steve Kerr, right? He punched Steve Kerr in the chest, or Steve Kerr punched him in the chest, something like that. They got into a
Steve
fight.
Kerr in the face, yeah.
Yeah, they were like borderline abusive to each other, but abusive to the extent that they were getting each other going. They were motivating each other as a team, which, having played football and wrestling, back in the day, I get that. Like, you got to get people going. You got to hold people accountable around you to a certain standard. But how do you bring that intensity into an office environment without being a complete HR violation, I guess is my question.
I mean, nowadays it might be tough. In the 90s, it was probably different. But he basically did two things. One is he led by example. I think he said it in the documentary. He never asked anything of anyone else that he himself didn't do.
Right.
And then he just rose the bar. He rose the standard. The work you're putting in or whatever, the results you're getting is not good enough. So he led by example, and then he rose the bar. So you can apply those two principles to business.
So how do you do it, though, with the same intensity and ferocity? Because I feel like it's all like a puzzle that needs to be put together, right?
You know who probably did it with the same intensity and ferocity was like Jordan Belfort, like in Belfort, right? Back when he was on the Wolf of Wall Street and had Stratmont.
He definitely did it, but he was doing things that were massive HR, like very illegal.
Yes. Yeah.
So because I think that there's something to be learned from that whole documentary, and there's so much about it that's awesome too, especially like on the Phil Jackson side. Like, he was more of the spiritual leader. Like they get into his leadership. Like, he's letting Dennis Rodman go to Vegas for 48 hours and
he was a great coach.
Needs to get out. Amazing. And
the way they ended it with the barrel. And do you watch the end?
I didn't. I still haven't gotten through the last two.
Oh, okay.
Episodes.
So you'll see. I won't ruin it. But the way after that last season. The ceremony, so to speak, that Phil Jackson put on for the team, they all said it was one of the most emotional and memorable.
Was it some Native American related?
I think he got it from a Native American tradition. I'm not sure about that, but I think so.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just to come up with stuff like that, you see what type of leader and coach he was.
Yeah, he knew how to connect people and get people to connect.
Because it's easy to say, oh, he had Jordan and Pippen, and then he won a bunch of championships with the Lakers because he had Shaq and Kobe, right? So anyone could have won. But then you just hear about how he handled himself and his mentality and some of the little things he did, and you say, you know what? No, that was really, I mean, it all was just the perfect fit. Yeah,
I think Phil's role is more of, how do I keep my guys not only physically healthy, but mentally healthy, mentally engaged in the game? How do I keep them motivated every day, showing up to play? And then how do I make it so that they all play together as a cohesive team, as a one unit, right? And then maintaining that over years. It's hard.
Absolutely, because you go start to get involved.
Well, you get involved in the back office stuff with contracts and who's getting paid and who's not getting paid.
Exactly.
And then
people want their money.
You have to somehow temper people's ego. How hard is that to do? Right?
I think it's tough. I think it's I think he was great. It definitely makes it easier. The fact that you're winning. When you're winning, that helps set everything aside. When you're losing and dealing with that, it becomes probably more of an explosive situation.
Well, that's when you say, what am I doing this for? It's not working, right?
Well, that's when the players start to lose it. But if you're still winning, you can keep it together because you're winning.
Yeah. I thought it was easily one of the coolest documentaries that's come out in a long time.
There's so much good stuff out there. Just talking about content, it's now everyone's discovering it because everyone's on lockdown. But this is it sounds stupid. I'm about to say, but we're living through like the golden era of TV,
and
right?
content.
I mean, there's just
so
much. There's so many great shows. You have huge actors now and good actors doing TV series instead of movies, and they're just pumping out new show after show.
Well, that's honestly very interesting to me, is the whole Hollywood thing and how Hollywood isn't making the money they were making off of movies anymore, and the funding for movies isn't there anymore the way it once was because they don't make as much money. But the content that's out there in Netflix, where you're going to get let's say you get 6 seasons, an hour each, 10 episodes, that's 60 hours of content, as opposed to
a 2-hour
two-hour movie that you would have to go to the movie theater to see. I mean, it's...
Well, exactly. The plots, the story, everything could just be more developed, and it doesn't have to be as rushed as it would for a movie.
I know.
But even if you think about the most successful movies now, like the Avengers, it's like a 20-movie series. They're all connected.
Yeah.
Right? So it just allows this story to go on, and it's great.
Yeah. It's different. Times have changed, man. It's totally different. And you know what's funny, too? Like, I don't have the patience to wait a week anymore.
No.
Like, the days of, the episode ended. Shit, gotta wait a week. Like, I don't have that patience anymore.
No, you'll stop.
Or I'll stop. Like Narcos, when a season of Narcos comes out, I'm in front of that TV, man.
So I'll give you a good example. So Sam and I watch Homeland. This is the final season of Homeland was on. I don't know if you watched it at all. It's a cool
Not a
show.
Homeland guy, but I think
it?
I know the president.
You've heard of it, yeah. So the final season, and it's on Stars, I think, or Showtime. It's on Showtime, and it airs every Sunday.
Yeah.
And so we watched like the first. We didn't when the final season started. We were like 3 weeks late. So we binge watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes on Showtime On Demand, and then we had to wait until every Sunday as it came out. And I think we watched like the 5th, and then we just forgot about it because a week goes by, so much crazy shit happens. You start binge watching other shows, you just get busy with life. And like 2 months later, we're like, shit, we're out of stuff to watch. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, we never
finished
Homeland. We just stopped Homeland in the middle of the season.
Let's keep going.
And then we got to binge watch till the end. So yeah, if you don't give people the opportunity to binge watch, it's highly unlikely they're gonna make it through the whole season.
Well, because here's the issue is these days there's so much content out there. It's hard to keep people's attention. So in a situation like Homeland, you forget because in between Homeland releasing something today and a year from now, you start 5 new things between now and then because the content's getting thrown at you so fast that you forget.
And now it's even worse because now this whole lockdown and not being able to work thing, like it used to be, I say, okay, I'm going to go to bed, or no matter what, I'll shut the TV off at 10. I'll go to bed. I got to be up for work. Now I still waking up to do things, but it's just a different mentality. So now I'll stay up binge watching till like midnight and just wake up tired because it's like, whatever. I could be tired. It's not a normal day like it used to be.
How hard do you think it's going to be for some people just to get into a new routine again? Really
hard. I've been slowly just trying to get into a routine of just waking up, exercising, back to what I used to do. Mm-hmm. It's hard. For sure.
It's not easy. It's amazing how, like, you revert to these patterns, right? I'd say within 3 weeks of a new pattern, it's very hard to pop back into your old pattern, right? But the trick is never breaking your pattern. But in this case, it was.
And now we're getting into the summer. So summer on Long Island that's the time when people slow down. They take vacation. They enjoy the weather. So it's going to be even more. Forget about the whole coronavirus going on. It's just we're entering a time of year where people usually enjoy themselves a little bit more, tone it down a notch. So by the time between the summer and the coronavirus, by the time we get to September, there's going to be a lot of people are going to be in for a rude awakening, I'm sure.
I got to be honest with you. I mean, I was out this weekend. Mm-hmm. We were out in Massapequa at the end last week.
Yeah.
You would think there's a party going on outside. And I think I said this in previous episodes, but I'm at the point where I think people are exposing themselves to other people at the same rate, maybe even more than they would if they went to work.
Well, in an outdoor situation, for sure. Yeah, people are gathering outdoors.
I mean, we were on beaches. There's people on the beach, sitting, relaxing.
But is that a bad thing?
No. What I'm saying is they're keeping us shut down to keep people away from each other. It's not working.
No, you people are social creatures. They're going to go. And It's one thing. Initially, you shut down, fine. People say, okay. Also, it's been like here on Long Island. It's been rainy. It's been windy. It's been cold for the past 2 months. So now you have a combination of, one, the weather's getting nicer, and two, it's been 2 months or 2.5 months. People are just getting fed up with the lockdown.
I mean, the last thing I want to do is stay home.
Well, there's only so
while
much you
being
could
locked
do.
down. You get cabin fever. You gotta get out.
You even go in your backyard, let the kids play in the backyard. I mean, you can't. How many times are you going to do that?
It's the same thing over and over. It's Groundhog Day for a lot of people. So that's why people are getting out and going. I mean, we went up to Cold Spring Harbor this weekend. We went to like the Cold Spring Harbor Preserve or something like that. We pulled into the parking lot. Look, you would think like Aerosmith was holding a concert.
Good, I love it. Good for people.
There was cars lined down the street.
Awesome.
Okay, to get into this park, lines of people walking in, and I just looked at my wife. I'm like, probably can't. It's probably not smart to go in there.
But you're outdoors. You're at the beach.
So then we went from Cold Spring Harbor Preserve, 2 minutes away, to a beach in Lloyd Harbor, and once again, a lot of people on the beach. There's guys fishing off the shoreline. Why are we still locked down from an economical standpoint with businesses and everything, that a lot of them are not coming back because it's just been too damn long, when people are interacting anyway?
It's become a political thing, all right? The initial lockdown was slow. We got to slow the spread. Slow the spread, make sure our hospitals don't get overwhelmed. So we've slowed the spread. On Long Island, hospitals are they are only at 70% capacity, so they have 30% more capacity. You've also had plenty of time to plan, make makeshift hospitals, whatever you want to call them, at places like the Javits Center or whatever, right? So now you've achieved all the goals of doing it initially, and now it's just become like this political thing where people have their feet, dug in, and so it's I don't know why we're still locked down. Like, to your point.
Businesses. I think it's stupid at this point for businesses to not be able to open, because they're the ones that are really in trouble. All these storefronts, retail, restaurants, you name it, they're all in trouble. But people are still interacting at the same level that they would have been. They're just not doing it in those places. They're doing it. They're doing it elsewhere. Exactly.
So you've slowed the spread. You've given hospitals the time to just get themselves prepared, to catch up. And now you have people interacting anyway. So that you're only hurting now businesses, and you allow people, people can go congregate in a Home Depot or a Target, so why can't they just go to local business?
I went to Home Depot this weekend to get some propane for my grill. And there's a line wrapped around the building to get in. And then when you get in, it's like you never knew that there was something wrong. There's that many people in Home Depot. There's more people in Home Depot than previously I've ever seen at Home Depot. Yeah. The only difference is everyone's wearing masks. Same thing at Micro Center. I had to go to Micro Center to get a mic to do some voiceover for the videos that we shot this weekend. You go into Micro Center, everyone's there.
Yeah. Good.
The guys in Micro Center, they're giving fist bumps instead of handshakes.
Good. Good.
It's like, I'm telling you, I've been out during this pandemic. There is no difference in having local businesses opened and not having them opened with regards to people interacting and intermingling, and the potential that may cause spread of the virus. Because, I mean, we've been all over the place. We've been to 5 different parks. I've been to 10 different stores and retailers, Costco, Home Depot, Micro Center, you name it. It's all the same thing. There's people stacked on top of each other doing their thing.
Well, good. I mean, unless people start to just to continue doing their thing and just ignore what's going on, this is never going to end. It's never going to end. People just have to take it into their own hands. Do whatever you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable, then stay home. That's fine. But
so you want to talk about never ending? Let's talk about this contact tracing thing that Cuomo is talking about. So to lay it out for anyone listening, what he's planning on doing, Governor Cuomo, is hiring an army, and he literally called it an army, of contact tracers.
Yeah. Sounds like China.
Like 17,000 people. First of all, who's paying for this? I thought the state was broke, right?
You can apply for it. They have there's a website you can go and apply for the job.
So what they're doing is they're training these contact tracers, and their whole job is basically to say, okay, and I don't know exactly when or how they would know this, but maybe you could shed light on it. I don't know if you read the article, but if you were exposed, if you were exposed to someone 8 days ago, you may get a phone call from a contact tracer saying 8 days ago you were exposed to John Smith, who came into the hospital with a positive COVID test. You need to self-quarantine for 14 days. So essentially, at any time, your phone can ring, or if you go to the hospital and you test positive for COVID, you're going to have to report all the people and all the places that you've been, I guess, over the last 14 days, because that's how long you go asymptomatic with this disease, but still be, spreading it. And all of those people you spoke to have to self-quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah. I'd tell them to go fuck off if someone told me to self-quarantine for 14 days. Seriously.
So think about it. Think about it like this. School. How does a school ever get back to school with kids if one kid tests positive for COVID? The whole grade goes out on the play set.
Oh, and then what about their parents? Because the kids came home to
And
their
then the kids came home, and then all of those kids came home to their parents. They've got to self-quarantine. How deep does the rabbit hole go?
It's fucking stupid.
It's crazy.
It's beyond crazy.
It's what that would create is essentially another lockdown and a perpetual systematic setbacks to getting back to normal. So
that's why unless people just take this into their own hands, this is not going to end. It's going to get insane.
I know.
What would you do if someone called you and said, "Hey, Ron"?
Well, so here's the deal: enforcement, right? So this goes back to our discussion about enforcement. What are they going to do to enforce that?
You can't enforce.
How do you enforce contact tracing and these phone calls of notifications that you were exposed to COVID virus? Does a cop show up at your house and say, "I'm going to come here"? Almost like you've recently been released with
so it's
on
gonna be like
probation.
China. They're gonna come to your house and drag you out.
Not drag you out, but maybe they'll go there and make sure you're self-quarantining.
And then do it. First of all, it's all unless you're illegally. So the way I understand it is they're going to, if you have it, they're going to interview you, right? And then you'll say where you've been. So that first of all, that's all from a legal standpoint, and I'm not a lawyer, but right, let's just pretend I am. That's hearsay. So now based on hearsay, you have to quarantine because I said you were there. You have to quarantine for 14 days based on hearsay. So there's no, from a legal standpoint, I don't understand how you can enforce it unless you illegally start tracking people's like credit card usage and cell phone. Say, oh, we tracked your cell phone. You were there, but that's not fucking legal. They can't start, right? Can they just track your cell phone to prove you're somewhere and then put you in quarantine for 14 days? The whole thing is so out of hand.
Or how about the like for people like you and me, we would basically tell someone to go fuck themselves. But what about the person who is listening, right, and has a job, and a contact tracer calls them and says, "Hey, we advise you stay home the next 14 days." And then they call their employer and they tell their employer, "Mr. Employer, I was exposed to COVID. I've been advised that I have to stay home for the next 14 days. Are you going to pay me for the next 14 days?" Like this, the web keeps going.
So stupid.
It doesn't stop. That to me is probably the most.
And how do you even, if someone calls me, is like, "Hi, I'm a contact tracer," and be like, "Who?" I don't know. Like, could just be some kids fucking around. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, okay. Well, so because someone called me and said they're a contact tracer,
I understand what you're saying, but let's assume.
Like, show me your badge.
Let's assume it is a legitimate phone call. I mean,
but how do you even know if that happened?
I don't know. To me, the enforcement thing is going to be interesting. If they fine you, the only way that
so in America, in New York, the greatest city on the planet, and in America, we're hiring an army to trace people and lock them down for 14 days.
Yes, that is exactly.
How are people okay with that? How do they sit well with that?
I don't know.
All right, it's to slow the spread.
You would have a certain level of, you'd have like an uprising. You'd have a bit of mutiny.
I should hope so.
You should. I mean, but then there's going to be a whole subset of population that is going to be afraid. You know, you were just on the phone with someone who's afraid, right? So think about it. That guy would quarantine for 14 days.
It's
right? And then there's you, and then there's me, and everyone's going to handle it differently. It's just, where they start infringing on our rights is
which has already started.
It is right here where we talk about enforcing this. If people start getting fines, arrested, whatever, that's a problem. It's almost like you're an inmate who got out on bail, who's on house arrest. And
people are not going to stand for it this long.
You're basically Tekashi 6ix9ine with an ankle bracelet on at his house, can't leave. That's what's happened. That's the only way to enforce it.
I don't know.
I agree with you, though. Again, getting back to this conversation, after 9/11, we lost a lot of freedoms. This is similar. When government steps in a situation like this and institutes a new way of doing things, those new objectives, processes, call them what you want, they typically don't get rolled back. It's the same reason why when we go to the airport these days, you got to take your shoes off. You got to stand in the thing and let it spin around you and scan you. But to be honest with you, in the case of the airport, I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and that's not, I really, all right, so you could argue that you've lost the freedom, but, you know, having to wait on a security line and get scanned and take off your shoes to make sure that you're going to be safe on the plane, fine. To have to tell my 4-year-old son, hey, for the rest of your life, when you go to school or play sports or do anything, you have to wear a mask. Yeah, not fine. Fuck that. Fuck you.
Well, let's talk about...
I'm not going to do that.
Let's talk about... I have an article here pulled up.
It's more about the kids for me. I mean, you're just stealing...
So the Patch just reported that they have a summer beach and park plan for a summer like no other this year. And this is what they are suggesting in this article. These are the different things. And they mention on the issue of enforcement, this is from the Patch, the supervisors, now when they say supervisors, Nassau County and Suffolk County met and they got together and they're creating a plan for, it's a bi-county plan they're calling it because Nassau and Suffolk is all of Long Island. On the issue of enforcement, the supervisors decided that all towns would remain in sync throughout the summer session. An established escalation process will be in place for visitors that do not comply with public health policies. The town's task force will establish clear lines of communication between parks enforcement personnel and either county police or local law enforcement agencies. So everything we're talking about right now, these hypotheticals, they're talking about an escalation policy, an escalation process, which is if someone doesn't comply, do they get arrested? Do they get fined? What's the next step? If you have 2 fines, do you then get arrested? If you have 3 fines, do you then get arrested? It's real.
It's real, but what are you going to do when 3 million, people don't comply?
I don't know.
Because it's stupid.
I don't know. I agree with you. So
because they want to go to the beach and not wear a mask.
So these are... So if you're going to the beach, okay, these are the regulations that they're putting in place. The following is a list of beach, park, and playground policies as suggested by the task force. Beaches. Face coverings and masks must be worn when visitors arrive at the facility, when moving through parking lots and public areas, when walking down to the beachfront or up from the beachfront, when in concession or restroom area or any other public area than the below. Visitors may remove their masks when in the water.
Oh, thank you. Good, thanks.
When stationary on a towel, blanket, chair, etc. with their household group. So in other words, when you're in the water, which you're obviously not going to be wearing a mask in the water, or when you're sitting on your towel. Those are the only 2 times on the beach you're not allowed to be wearing a mask.
It's this weekend's Memorial Day. I don't know what the weather's going to be. I hope it's beach weather. I guarantee you, and I pray that this is accurate for humanity's sake, that you go to the beach, no one's in a fucking mask. Get the fuck out of here. Are you kidding me?
I know. Capacity limitations. All beaches will have a capacity plan developed that reflect the facility's unique parking lot capacity, beachfront capacity, and restroom and concession setup, the supervisor said. In order to adhere to New York State's guidelines of 50% beach capacity, towns may restrict or expand their parking lot access depending upon the safe capacity of the beachfront.
So this is all, so I have some numbers here. So this is all, and I don't know what date these numbers are from, but the population of New York is 19,450,000 people. The total cases are 343,000, which is so 1.7% of New York's population has it. Of the total cases, there are 27,000 deaths. So the death rate is 0.14%. So if you do the math, you have a 99.86% chance of surviving COVID. So, and New York's the worst. That's the worst. Every other state, you have a higher chance of survival.
I agree with you. Those numbers.
So because of these numbers, these policies are in place. Are you kidding me?
So
what if we get an actual pandemic?
Swimming restrictions. Depending on the beach and water conditions, residents will be asked to restrict swimming to 20 to 30 feet from the shoreline, or at most 10 feet past the wave break. That supervisor said will lower the rate of saves required by lifeguards and to protect their health. Lifeguards on site, I'm sure, listen, if someone's 30 feet out in the water swimming, they probably don't have COVID, right? They're probably okay. Their lungs are doing just fine.
That's another point, right? It's like if you're out in the middle of the water swimming around.
I can't swim in 7 feet water, let alone, 30 feet out in the ocean. Pools and spray parks. Due to health and sanitation concerns, no town will open any pool facility or spray parks until guidance is issued.
See, this is the stuff that gets me because it affects the kids.
Yes. All parks, and then this is parks, all parks and fields will be open for passive use only. No group sport activities will be allowed until further notice. In addition, there will be no congregating of any kind unless visitors are seated or stationary with strict social distancing adherence. Masks should be worn at all times when moving through parks unless there are no other visitors within the site. The plan said. All playgrounds will remain closed until further notice. And marinas will open by June 1st. I'm actually thinking about getting a boat because of all this.
You should. So the boats, so I don't know, boats that are like $15,000, $20,000 boats, which there are a lot, those are selling like hotcakes. The boats that were $100,000 are now like $60,000. Now, I don't know, the boats that were like 60 to 70.
So where do I get something like that? Where do I get a deal like that?
Oh, so you could look like online, or you can go to a boat store. But a lot of it is online. It's people selling their $100,000 boat for $60,000. Or you could just, like I said, you can get a nice boat for like 20 grand too. It all depends on what you want. I mean,
my mother-in-law works at like a boat place in Jersey. They detail a lot of boats and stuff like that. I don't even know what you call it. It's like a marina.
Yeah, probably a marina.
I have her looking out for me. Yeah. Once she finds something good, I'm buying it. Because I was told like there's people that a boat could be a $300,000 boat. You get it for 50 grand.
Yeah, well that seems excessive, but yes.
Yeah, if people start defaulting on their loans and stuff like that, and it gets repossessed, and that's the first thing people default on is a boat. Why am I going to pay for my boat? I'm going to pay for my boat or my house. I'm going to pay for my house, not my boat.
Exactly.
And then summer programs. Due to sanitation concerns, no town will operate summer programs or day camps until guidance is issued from New York State. So summer camps are out of the questions for kids.
We had my kids signed up for the first time to summer camp this year.
They're not going.
This is where you just annoy me beyond belief.
Well, forget about it. Well, how about the fact that, our wives have been, and husbands out there have been watching their children.
Oh, Sam's losing
all day.
Yeah.
Every day. It does not let up. Kids go to school, and school is great, and they learn a lot in school. Okay. But school is also a place to get rid of your kids for a few hours so you can do something for yourself. I mean, my house is a disaster.
Yeah.
It's impossible to keep up. They're tough. They're
so
tough. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so my wife is losing it rightfully so because she's got the kids all day.
She has every right to be.
I live on the water. We have piers that stick out. You could go fishing. We have paddle boards. We have a boat. I have a park right next door. Kids have bikes. They have quads they can ride, right? So you couldn't have, obviously you can have people have, great setups, but I mean, you couldn't have more activities at the kids' fingertips from home. And it's still
tough.
The kids just get bored. They need to just play with other kids and go out and go to camp or go to baseball practice or whatever. You can't. People are losing it, and rightfully so.
So for the last 2.5 months, she's been trying to homeschool the kids, right? One of our kids he's a special needs kid, so you can imagine what it's like trying to homeschool a special needs kid via Zoom. Impossible.
No.
Then, and a lot of those special needs kids, by the way, they have 12-month, my wife was describing it to me yesterday, they have 12-month programs, meaning they learn all year round. They don't take that summer break because they need to stay consistent with it or they fall behind. So those kids need attention, right? They're going all summer without the proper attention and schooling. And then there's still that big question mark out there of people who believe that we're not going back to school in the fall. Which at that point you might see stay-at-home moms shoot themselves in the head because these kids are driving them nuts at that point.
And even if though you could take the extreme scenario of like a special needs kid, forget about just all the kids who go to school. Even if that worked, even if from that standpoint it was the same as the kid going to school and they were able to learn and do that, do you still really want them in front of a screen for 6 hours a day and not actually being around the other kids? My answer would be no. I would still prefer them to go to school, be around other kids, and learn in that manner, even if it was just as effective.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know how people are going to keep their sanity.
They just need to start ignoring,
Yeah,
and I hate to
do?
say it, just ignore it. They can't. If New York's 19 million people, just say, you know what, guys, fuck you.
I agree, but you can't just drop a kid off at a vacant school.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's a different one.
Imagine mothers just start dropping their kids off at school. There's hundreds of kids on school lawns just waiting for teachers to show up.
I'll go supervise them. You know what? I'll say, listen, I can handle, if the 30 people want to drop their kid off at the school, I'll sit there and watch them because this is crazy. I mean, at some point, someone's got to take a stand.
I know. It's insane. You see Trump's taking hydrochloroquine?
Yeah, well, he must have it.
I don't think he has it.
She's just taking it preventatively.
Yeah, which is insane because that drug's a hard drug.
But apparently a lot of people on the front lines are taking it.
Just to take it?
Apparently, and I don't know. So this is where the news is crazy. Like you watch CNN and read the New York Times, and then you watch Fox and whatever else, and you get two completely
different.
Yeah, but apparently, if taken in combination with, so apparently it's not effective unless taken with zinc.
Yeah.
So, if taken with zinc, it's a good preventative measure and like anti-inflammatory or whatever else. You know, and again, this is just from the news, it's not from my own research, and it works, and a lot of people on the front lines are doing it. But you talk to someone.
Donnie kills me though.
Yeah.
Good old
Donnie.
The Don. He just. I mean, guy's a maniac.
Well, it's the whole political atmosphere has just gotten insane.
There's actually people out there that think he takes this like a speed every day, like it's some kind of amphetamine. There was I don't know the name of it. I heard it on I heard Rogan talking about it a few times that back in the 90s or 80s there was this like everyday over the counter pill that you could take for speed that you can't buy over the counter anymore, that
he's stocked up.
Maybe stocked up, or no, it's still available somehow, prescription or some way or another, but he thinks he's taking it because in your mid 70s this guy does not sleep. He just keeps going.
I love it. You know what? The whole political system is so broken. So I say anything that infuriates people, good. I hope he's on it. I hope he's taking coke. Good. Let it infuriate people. Let's burn the whole thing down and rebuild. I'm all for it.
This has completely...
I hope he keeps announcing he's on more drugs because it just gets people so crazy.
It does. So what's happening in other states, though? I don't know what the state's doing.
So I heard, again, just from the news, that Georgia has been open for weeks now. And I'm not sure if it was like single week admissions were under 1,000 or total hospital admissions, total COVID hospital admissions overall for the first time since the pandemic started are now under 1,000 patients. But it's either the single week or since it began, they're they've had the lowest amount of hospital admissions or people in the hospital with corona, and they've been open for weeks. So explain that one.
What are their restrictions, though, having been open?
I don't know the
like,
details.
is everything at 50, 25% capacity? I mean, I think those things are important because I do think there's something to everything getting to 100% capacity that would enable the spread to really to go. But then again, there's also graphs out there that say if you remove New York from the equation and you look at coronaviruses across the country, they're still on the rise.
Yeah, but it's still like 1% of the population
is actually dying.
I get you could say, no, not dying, getting it. Like 1% of or maybe 1.5% of the population of America actually has it. Now you could say, of course, yes, that's because we shut down. It would be much higher. Sure. But at this point, you can't warrant with 1 or 1.5% of the people having it. How do you warrant the extreme measures we're still taking?
No, it's time to. By the way, where are we in that whole?
I don't know. Yeah, last I checked, we were hitting 5 of 7 metrics.
5 of 7. We're still at 5 of 7,
and that updates. That's the thing that updates.
So
what are the two?
There's
metrics
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regions that hit all 7 metrics: Western New York, the Southern Tier, North Country, Mohawk Valley, Finger Lakes, and Central New York. The Capital Region has 6 of 7.
What are the 2 metrics Long Island's missing?
Long Island, Mid-Hudson, and New York City is still at only 4 of 7. I can't believe New York City is still at only 4 of 7. Long Island is not hitting a 14-day decline in hospital deaths or fewer than 5 deaths from COVID.
But hopefully, so that's like real estate closings. That's a lagging indicator, right? Yeah. So that's deaths. So hopefully that in the next couple of weeks, we hit that metric.
The other one is, where's the other one?
Is it the one that says expected?
Expected.
That's the tracer.
Contact tracers, 30 per 100,000 residents or based on infection rate. So we don't have that either. So
so Cuomo's army isn't assembled on Long Island yet.
But we're getting close.
And then you can start phase 1.
New York City is share of total beds available is at 27%.
So it needs to be at 30% available capacity.
Share of ICU beds available, they're still at 26%. What happens, though, with, like, surgeries and stuff like that when people go to the ICU?
Well, that's the other
Does
thing.
that count?
How many people are suffering because they're not getting care that they normally would have?
You know what I mean? Like, how many elective procedures where post-elective procedures someone's in the ICU? Like,
yeah, it's total
heart
bed capacity.
Like an open heart surgery or brain surgery.
Yeah, so they're cutting down, hospitals are cutting down tremendously on their elective surgeries to keep that 30% capacity.
That's insane. Dude, I read an article about what the government is giving these hospitals. The amount of money is out of control. Billions.
Well,
but it's costing them billions.
Yeah. Well, yes.
It's costing them billions.
The government's giving everyone billions. They're giving out trillions.
Oh, Jesus. I wonder if there's another bailout package coming. They're saying there is. Powell keeps saying that we're looking at like needing to float America for another 3 to 6 months, meaning they've got to get money in the hands of Americans over the next 3 to 6 months to make sure that the American people don't go insolvent.
Or just let the American people get back to work.
Or just let them get back to work. But I think the damage there is done.
It's done, but you're just making it worse and worse.
It's true. It's going deeper.
There's a lot of businesses that could last and people that were okay for 3 months, 4 months. But once you start getting to 6 months,
it's crazy. It's
insane.
It's a lot. It's definitely a lot. Did you see Joe Rogan just signed a contract with Spotify, $100 million?
But so apparently nothing changes. It's still, his podcast is still going to be free. He's still going to do it in the same way. It's just he's going to be on Spotify.
I think he had 120 million monthly downloads.
It's crazy. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him is right. That talk about like a grassroots thing. He he started that in his garage with just like friends coming over and talking.
He's the guy who needs to start telling people to
Well,
just
he
ignore
is.
the government.
He is.
He's saying that?
He's saying it's out of control.
Yeah.
He's cautiously saying that.
Wasn't he? I heard him saying he might move from California to Texas. If
So what he wants to get out of LA. He's wanted to get out of LA. Period. I mean, I don't know anything about LA. I haven't actually been. Have you been to LA?
Yes.
What I mean, gorgeous. Because from what I'm told, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But then again, I have friends out there who say it's like littered with homeless issues now. The homeless
it seems to be every major city.
Well, every liberal major city, right? You know, San Francisco's the worst. But it's littered with homelessness, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, you'll have a gated house worth $10 million, and right outside that house, outside those gates, is like bums literally sleeping on the street. But you know, he's just sick of the congestion. I mean, apparently the traffic there is as bad as the George Washington. You know,
worse.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah,
it's worse. So they're looking to get out of there. They're looking to get out of there and go to a place where basically he could just like move a bunch of, and he's got another 100 million now. They were saying that podcast probably makes 30 million a year.
Plus he does his
you know what though?
stand-up,
Why would you sell it? Why would you? But then again, he's still doing it, so he's probably still getting ad revenue. Spotify just paid him.
I think they paid him just to be on the platform.
Just to be exclusive. Imagine getting $100 million just to be exclusive.
And you could still get all your ad revenue.
And still get all the ad revenue. So he got $100 million to move over to Spotify, and now he's probably still going to make that $30 million a year.
Well, I also read it might have had something to do with the YouTube, because he's not going to be on YouTube. So as of September 1st, he's going to be on Spotify and all other platforms. And then as of January 1st, 2021, it's exclusively Spotify.
So Spotify's only
YouTube,
audio. Spotify's only audio though, right?
Well, I think, are they going to have, because I heard, and I don't know if it's true, I heard it might have something to do with the YouTube restrictions and censorship that YouTube might be getting a little out of hand with.
Well, they kept demonetizing him. So if you brought something up in a video, like let's say you had an opinion that they didn't agree with, they would demonetize him. It literally could be something that they don't agree with, like because he's got a lot of far right views on certain things, like hunting, let's say, or whatever. He could have some kind of opinion about some kind of thing that's in the news, and if the liberals in Silicon Valley that run YouTube aren't okay with it, they would demonetize him.
It's crazy that hunting's a far right. I mean, the ability for someone to go kill an animal.
I'm not saying that was it, but he's
Yeah.
got a lot of Republican
But
values.
he's a self-proclaimed liberal.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he grew up. He was raised by like hippies in San Francisco with like hair down to their ass and stuff like that. So he's somewhere in the middle. You know, he believes in the hard work and the work ethic.
Which I think is most of America.
And all that stuff. Yes, and then he's also socially. He cares about people. You know, so, but 100 million, he's the $100 million man.
Good for him.
Started in his garage, just talking to his friends.
Howard Stern must be going nuts.
Oh, God, yeah, for sure. Well,
because his contract was, Stern got like a 500, but that
500 for 5 years.
But was that just for him, or is that to run the whole
Rogan's
thing?
making more money. Rogan,
No, I mean Stern.
Well, Stern got 100 a year.
But is that just for 5 Stern, years. Or is that to run?
I think
that also to make his payroll and do everything?
I think that's to pay everybody. So that probably, I don't know.
I mean, everyone else's payroll, even if the total salaries for the show come out to like $5 million a year.
Yeah,
he's still.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though.
Because you got, yeah.
The bottom line is this: if you can create a following, if you can get more people to watch and pay attention to your content that you're pushing out today, you don't need some company behind you that's putting you on their airways and all that bullshit. Think about it. Years ago, like, all right, I'll give you a perfect example because I don't know why he popped into my head, but he did. Tom Green. Remember Tom Green, the guy on...
Because he was on Rogan, yeah.
So he would run around with a camcorder and tape funny stuff, and then he had to go take that content to MTV, to any kind of outlet that might play something like that. And then they would have to get behind it. all the executives, and they would take a huge chunk of, the money from the talent, all that stuff. Today, we are so uniquely positioned with the internet and the ability to do things like this that we could push content out and just do it every week or every day or however often you want to do it. And if you do it consistent enough and it's good content and people want to hear that content, you're going to create a following and you can monetize all of this. That's what's cool about it.
You're still dependent upon, YouTube is still censoring him, and you're still dependent upon YouTube, Facebook, these huge platforms allowing you to do what you do.
You just have to walk a certain line with that, I guess.
The only way to truly be independent is to have
for instance,
your website and an email list.
Yes, but
otherwise you're still dependent upon some type of other organization, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify,
right,
to help you reach.
Well, one of the ways, a simple way to get demonetized is if I got on my phone right now and I played a song that was copyrighted.
Yes.
So there's a lot of different ways to get demonetized.
All right, I get that. That's fine. That's someone else owns that. Yeah, I mean, that's that I can understand.
Yeah, but bottom line is, if it's possible for everybody. I mean, there's a kid that's reviewing toys making $20 million a year, right? So let's get into real estate. Okay. What is going on with real estate here on Long Island? Give me the metrics.
So in April of 2019 on Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk combined, median price of, and I did pending sales because closed sales don't show, because what closed went into contract 2 months ago, so it's still kind of not accurate data because a lot of that stuff went into contract before the pandemic or right as it started, right. and we didn't see, the price. It actually shows an increase in closed sale prices, which is not accurate,
right?
Because this didn't happen yet. So pending sales median price in March of 2019 was $455,000. In March of 2020, $470,000. So it was an increase. But again, that's for the month of March when all this just began. If you look at pending sales in April, and we'll have the May data in a few weeks, but pending sales April of 2019 was $460,000. April of 2020, $465,000. So it's just a 1.1% increase year over year, but you'll see from March to April, there's a 1% decline in pending sales price. So basically prices are remaining stable for the most part, but we are starting to see a slight reduction. If you just take the last 7 days, so in the last 7 days, so I did March 12th to March 19th, new listings to hit the market this year, 676, which is down 29% from last year. Last year was 947 in the same 7-day period.
Wait, so that was...
So new listings to hit the market in the last 7 days of this year, March 12th to March 19th, 676 new listings. That's down 29% from the same 7-day period last year.
Did you pull from the beginning of March till today?
No, it was just the last 7 days. The last 7 days, March 12th to March 19th.
That's actually better than it was last month.
Mm-hmm.
I think last month it was down more like 60% versus 30.
And same thing, under contract, last 7 days, 343 houses under contract. Same 7-day period, 2019, 610. So that's a 43% decline. And that's mostly because of these crazy restrictions that we're having to deal with. It's because people don't want to let, they're nervous to have people in their house.
Well, let's talk about these restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what a real estate agent in today's world is and is not allowed to do.
Yeah. So this may not all be 100% accurate, but my understanding is, so real estate agents cannot facilitate a showing. So if you have a listing, you can market it. And if you get an interested party, you have to have both the seller and that interested party, the buyer, sign a COVID disclosure form, which is this BS form that people have come up with so they don't get sued.
Yeah, so it absolves you of any issues.
Exactly. And then you could put the buyer and the seller in touch with each other directly, and they can coordinate a showing. And if the seller and the buyer are both comfortable with doing it, they can set up the showing. Of course, it's presumed that the buyer is going to wear a mask and gloves and all this stuff, and they can conduct the showing. And then from that point, you can get back involved and help negotiate a deal and coordinate the transaction. which it just doesn't make sense to me. So why?
Let's talk about what we're hearing out there. So we're hearing in the last, I would say I started hearing this Saturday, this past weekend, that real estate agents are getting $10,000, $25,000 fines, and some are even getting their licenses revoked completely. So now we've got a situation where New York State has made it, you're basically waging your license on conducting business to do these showings, right? So a lot of real estate agents aren't okay with that. They're afraid.
Well, it's ridiculous.
They don't want to be on the receiving end of that. A lot of real estate agents couldn't even afford a $10,000 fine, especially after not being able to work as long as they have been. And the next few months is going to be a little slow with regards to commission checks for most real estate agents. So, I mean,
it's ridiculous. If
those numbers, the point is, those numbers would be very different if a real estate agent was legally allowed to do their job.
Yeah, well, so real estate's been deemed essential. So they can work. They're allowed to work. But you're not allowed to, I mean, again, if the seller is okay with having the house shown and the buyer is okay with having the house shown and all parties agree to it, why does the government have to get involved with stupid restrictions and rules? Listen, if someone doesn't feel comfortable, fine. Then don't show the house. If the buyer doesn't feel comfortable, fine. Don't come see the house. If the agent doesn't feel comfortable, fine. Stay out of it. But if everyone is adults and of clear mind,
is making their own
decisions, and they say, hey, listen, it's okay, then what do you care if I coordinate the showing or the seller and buyer coordinate it directly?
What's the difference? It's all being done on the phone anyway.
Why can't I even sit? If the buyer goes to the house, I can't even be in my car outside the house. What do you care if I'm in my car outside the house?
Yeah.
What's it matter?
It doesn't.
I mean, from a safety standpoint, right? So if the whole idea is to protect people, you're not protecting people anymore. You're just putting restrictions on people that are preventing them from earning a living.
I would say, though, that real estate agents being in the position they're in is definitely slowing down the market more than it could be. If real estate agents were still allowed to do their job, even if you took open houses off of the list of things that we were allowed to do, because I could see how that, a congregation of a lot of people. But you can also make the argument that you could do an open house in the same way that Costco lets people in their store, right? Everyone stands 6 feet apart, one at a time.
All right, what if I did an open house? I sit outside. I do it on a nice day. I sit outside. People come up. I say, please stand 6 feet apart. Please wear a mask. Please wear gloves. Walk through the house one at a time. I mean, what's the difference between that and people going to Costco? None. I'd say that's safer than the Costco situation.
Right, I agree.
I spoke to a woman who's going to be listing her house for sale soon by owner, and she's like, I'm doing an open house. She's like, I'm going to put on an open house.
She's technically, you can't tell her she can or can't do it.
She's allowed to. It's her private residence.
She's allowed to let anyone in.
Yeah, if I want to put a sign out front of my house that says, hey, come on in if you want. I mean, who can stop me?
I hear you. Well, the way real estate agents are getting in trouble is neighbors are calling when they see real estate agents show up and show a house.
Oh, don't get me started on people that are ratting other people out.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening now. It's like North Korea, Yeah.
You want to be a pawn, go live in China. Seriously.
Oh, Jesus. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Well, at some point, you have to draw a line in the sand.
You do.
And it can't be so... It can't be, it has to just become black or white, and there can't be this gray area. And that point, we're past that point for me. It's now black and white. You just have to, it's no longer, you just have to let freedom ring.
Yeah. Mike bleeds red, white, and blue. That's him. I hear you though, man. Look, but you know what? To that, there's also something interesting happening with real estate with people coming out from the city. That's real. I mean, we just shout out to Paul Licari, a guy who works for us. He just sold a $1.5 million house in Dix Hills to an all-cash New York City buyer who wants to get out of the city. So, and we rented the $5 million house on Pine Tree in West Hampton a month ago.
Yes.
For $150,000 for a summer. So...
to city residents.
Yes, there is a influx of New York City buyers coming to the island for sure. They're also going to Connecticut. They're going to New Jersey. They're going to Florida. They're going to the Southwest. There was actually a report done recently on what's happening with mail. So they did this report with New York City residents and mail forwarding. And since the pandemic broke out, they actually can quantify how many people have moved to where based on their mail forwarding. And apparently the large majority of it is all in the burbs right around here and in Florida. So we're going to see a lot of the, I mean, and that property in Dix Hills that was listed for 1.5, I mean, it was at a higher price point previously, but it's been listed for like a year and a half. And then before we had it, I think someone had it too. So this is not the worst thing in the world, right? Especially for the high-end market. I think we made that prediction the first time we came on here and started talking about this, that the lower-end market or the average market in the $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 price point is going to maybe suffer a little bit because those people are predominantly employees, and employees are losing their jobs, so there won't be as many buyers. But in the higher price point range, you know, call it $800,000 and up, those properties are going to move. Because we have that new New York City buyer who's coming out here that doesn't want to live on the Upper East Side anymore, that doesn't want to live on the Upper West Side anymore, whatever the case may be. So
there's going to be buyer demand.
There's going to be a surplus of buyer demand in the near future, which is awesome. Clock Tower. Anything you want to say about Clock Tower?
No, I mean, it's just this is a phenomenal opportunity to representing one of Long Island's premier luxury builders. They just complete new construction, 16,000 square feet, top of the line.
It's actually bigger than you're allowed to build in Old Westbury because they built it into a hill. So the front of the house, the land is higher than the back of the house. So they were able to create this situation where you get like another 4,000 square feet on the first level, which walks out to grade, which is the pool and all that stuff. The house is incredible, though. I mean, from a construction standpoint, you have brick and precast cement around the windows, which is absolutely gorgeous. The house is a smart house with Control 4. All the best finishes you could ever think of. There's probably $300,000 of millwork throughout the entire house, which gives it that extra flair. It's absolutely incredible.
The replacement value of the house is easily upwards of $9 million, $10 million.
Yeah. Land plus the build. Yep.
Yeah, you're not going to find a better product on Long Island. I mean, it doesn't. Maybe something equal, but it really doesn't get better than that.
No.
So it's an amazing opportunity for sure.
Yeah. And the block is a quiet block. It's elevated. It's
actually one of the highest blocks on Long Island.
Yeah, one of the highest points on the island. I think it's like 200 feet above sea level, somewhere along, something like that. But yeah, all good stuff. You guys are going to see a lot of content coming out of that house from us. So, all right, Mike, that's all I got. What about you?
That's it.
All right, guys, we are the Pesce Lanzillotta team at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. If you want to buy, sell, or rent real estate in the Long Island area, give us a call. Our phone number is 516-888-9711. That's 516-888-9711. Our email is info@pl-team.com. Thanks for giving it a listen, and we'll see you guys next week.